It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Hey, today I want to end the week with another HP video. I was online. I saw this article that was put out there by CRN, and they were talking about HP's first quarter. They had some quotes from Enrique Lores in this article, and I want to share this with you because when I'm reading the article, it could be a little bit confusing for a lot of readers. They might think that HP's knocking it out of the park with the PC business, but they're not selling more units. Their units have been declining for the last 2 quarters in a row, and when I was reading this article, there was a little bit of confusion around that, so I want to clarify that. They talked about the print business a little bit and some of the supply chain issues that are wrong with that. And obviously they brought up the word chips, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But ladies and gentlemen, when we read these articles that are out there, we really need to just go to HP's website, pull up their financials, start looking at the financials, and then start asking HP some serious damn questions. I don't know where our analysts are at, but they're not existing when it comes to HP. Or they just don't know what to ask them. But I've talked about this before. Why are we not questioning them on their subscription business? What's active? What's inactive? What's the revenue? What's the average revenue? No statistics at all. We just throw up these arbitrary numbers about how we're killing it in subscriptions. Where's the details around 3D printing? Where's the details around their gaming? What's the revenue? What's the cost? Folks, the bottom line is the PC business for HP represents 50% of their revenue comes from notebooks. 50% of total HP revenue comes from notebooks last quarter. That's what the number was. What's going to happen when that notebook business is pressured and pressured and pressured? What's going to happen when things get back to some normalcy? Can HP survive? That's why I'm very, very bearish on them. But when you read these articles out there, it can be damn confusing. So let me just pull up the article here, and here it is. You can see Enrique there, and it was put out by CRN. The title of it says this: HP net $17 billion in Q1 revenue with big boost from PCs. Again, big boost from PCs. The reader might be thinking, oh, they're selling all kinds of PCs. That's fantastic. Well, they're not. Their sales are, the units are down. Here's what I find very interesting about this particular article. 296 people had thumbs up it. Okay, gave it a thumbs up. Not one comment. Not one comment. Not one comment from any analyst. I was going to do this video in a comment, but I figured I'd have to do a video because the comment would be too long. But folks, can you believe this? 296 people, not one person has anything to say about this article. Why is that? I think you all know the reason for that. So let's just get into this article a little bit. And you know, I want to start out by reading this. While the pandemic has contributed to much of that growth with PC demand at all-time highs in the education and business sectors, HP CEO Enrique Lores believes the industry should be able to at least sustain the ballooned market size, if not the wild growth rate. What does that even mean? They're not selling more units. What's the demand? The only thing that's demanded is that HP can raise their price and demand the end users pay more money and then grow their revenue, but they're not growing their units. Where's the demand? Do you see where this is a little bit confusing? We think it's going to stay in this new market size for the foreseeable future. So they're going to stay in what market size? They're going to continue to decline in units placed? Is that what he's saying? For the foreseeable future, we're not going to sell units. We're going to continue to decline in unit sales, but we're going to be able to raise our prices. So our revenue is going to be okay. Is that really the business model going forward? You know, we're going to continue to sell less units, but we're going to be able to raise our prices. Folks, let's just get down to the personal systems, which includes notebooks, desktops, and workstations. Basically, all PC products grew by a whopping 15% year over year. Workstations alone grew by 40% year over year. Boy, you're thinking to yourself, man, they are killing it. Workstations, 40% growth. Boy, everybody must have went back to the office, had to buy a bunch of workstations. Maybe the workstations, even though the revenue grew in the workstations actually are a lot less money. You know, so maybe people are buying workstations instead of the notebooks. Who knows? But at the end of the day, when I show you the real growth, it makes the 40% number seem a little bit ridiculous. Lores attributes the quick growth of the company's handling of the supply chain crisis that has seen component shortages and overall shipping delays. So you read that and you're thinking, they got a handle on shipping delays, and they're doing all these great things, so they're able to sell a whole bunch of more units. They had 40% growth. Just remember this stuff because we're going to get to the financials in a second. So let me just come down here and talk real quick about the print sector. So we knew the print sector was down 4%, and we also know that the print sector is heavily weighted with supplies. I mean, without the supply business, they're in a real pickle over there, right? I mean, that's where most of their profit comes from. But let me just read you what he says about the print business and chips. I think this is very interesting. Lori said chip shortage were also hurting the print side of the businesses since HP's designs its own ASIC chips to work specifically with its printers' unique functions. HP has some really unique functions on their printers. Their printers are so much more unique than everybody else's printer. Really? You know why they have these special ASI chips on these printers to begin with? We all know, right? It's to lock out non-OEM toner. In other words, don't put a remanufactured cartridge in our printer. We have a chip that's going to lock you out. And if that doesn't work, we're going to push out a firmware to lock you out, even though we're one of the greenest companies in the world and we believe wholeheartedly in remanufacturing. But folks, the bottom line is they're having problems because they have a special chip that they make, a unique chip. And that's why they're contributing some of the declines in the print business. Some of the declines in the print business are simple. People are printing a whole lot less. People aren't going to be printing millions of pages in their houses. All these subscriptions you're supposedly selling aren't helping you grow any kind of revenue, and you always wonder what the hell are you even talking about with these subscriptions, because they never substantiate any of that revenue. How many are active, how many are inactive? So ladies and gentlemen, let's just jump over here to the financials and kind of clarify what we just read there, because it's crazy stuff. So you go to 22, quarter one, they have a presentation. Click on that, go to page 12, personal systems. Let me get my Sharp Interactive board working here because I want to circle some things, okay? Remember, we saw 15% growth, 40% growth in the workstations. Well, total units were down 6% year over year. Total units in the personal space were down 6%. Notebooks revenue was up 14% year over year. Well, we would expect the notebook revenue to be up because we are in what? Inflation, supply versus demand. You know, there's a supply chain issue, so we can raise our prices. But listen to this. Units were down 9% year over year. So maybe they should have put that in the article. You know, revenue increased, but units were down 9%. We don't want to talk about anything that's down. So it really wasn't a boom. It was kind of a bust when you think about it from a unit perspective. Desktop revenues were up 17% year over year, and the units, well, they had a real boom there, 3% year over year. 3%. 3% growth in desktops. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the reality. Notebooks represent 69% of the total revenue for personal systems. 69% for this whole entire business group. What happens when they're pressured? What happens when things go back to normal, when people aren't buying their units, when their units are down and down? And folks, you think, well, maybe this is just this quarter, right? Oh, they had revenue growth. They had 6% decline or 9% decline in notebooks, 6% overall, but you know, they're doing okay. Well, what did they do the quarter before? Let's just look at that. Fourth quarter. Here's the numbers, folks. Let me get my board working again. I like to circle this stuff. Total units down the fourth quarter. The quarter before the one I just talked about, were down 9%. So they were down 9% the fourth quarter. The first quarter, they're down 6% total. Notebooks revenue was up 13% year over year, but units were down 12%. 12% units were down. Folks, 12%. Desktop revenue up 11%, units were up by 2%. So the only units that they were selling more of were desktops for the last 2 quarters in a row. The fourth quarter, they were up 2%. This last quarter, they were up 3%. We all know where the world's going. The world's going to notebooks, right? The world's going to notebooks. What happens when there's pressure on the notebook business? Ladies and gentlemen, it just frustrates me that our analysts out there don't really get into HP. And they propagate a lot of stuff out in the marketplace, but some people can really be confused by what they throw out there. Really confused, because you would think they're hitting a home run, you know? Look, I give them the credit. They grew their revenue. They have good operating profit right now. But how much of that is attributed to the fact that we're in a supply chain issue, that we have a shortage of chips? If you're not selling more units, you're not selling more units. That's what we need to be questioning. Ladies and gentlemen, for quarter one, total company, the notebooks represented 50% of the total company's revenue. 69% just for the personal systems business, 50% for the whole company. What happens? What happens when HP gets pressure in that business? What happens? What happens, folks? They can't afford to get too competitive because they're bragging around the whole world about how much revenue they're driving because they're raising their prices because of conditions in the market. But those conditions in the market are going to adjust themselves, and they're not going to be able to raise their prices. They're going to have to lower their prices. And if they lower their prices and they can't deliver the units, what's going to happen? That's why I'm bearish on HP. By the way, just to let everybody know, there's another senior leader that's walking out the door, Andy Bender. And Andy headed up the HP toner supply business. He's done, he's out. We're seeing senior leaders leaving. We're seeing senior leaders selling off all their stock and leaving. So the question is, what's really going on over there at HP? And maybe the analysts ought to dig a little bit deeper, ask some tougher questions, and start bringing out some reality to balance off the nonsensical hype that you hear from HP itself. Some things to think about over the weekend, my friends, but we all know this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all on Monday.